Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we speak with ASX companies about their stories and the guys who actually run these companies. They will be sharing their thoughts. We're at the UWA Club here in Crawley at the University of Western Australia. We've got Critical Resources Ltd here today, ASX code CRR, and the man of the moment is Alex Biggs, he's the CEO of the company and will be giving us the storytelling. So, Alex, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me. Good surroundings.
Look, Alex, CR has a good story. I like the setup of your projects. So tell us about yourself and the company.
Yeah, sure. So a brief overview of Critical. We're a base metal and critical minerals explorer. We've got a base metals project over in New South Wales, Halls Peak, which we're going to be exploring next month. We've just made an acquisition of a project called Mavis Lake, which is a lithium asset in Canada. Extremely excited about that. We know the lithium market is good right now. It's really hot. And that project's fantastic in our eyes, so we'll be working that as well, doing some work there in the near term, and looking to get into drilling there in the next couple of months. Also, we have a copper asset in Oman, which is a very good asset. That was originally the relisting asset about a year ago of the company. So yeah, we've got 3 quality assets, which I think are going to add significant value to the business.
I mean, the acquisition of Mavis Lake, right, is obviously very upfront at this point in time. You just announced that. Can you share with us what that story is about?
Yeah, sure. So we acquired that asset from ESS, Essential Metals, and ILC, which is a TSXV listed company. They were in a joint venture for some years, and we've acquired 100%. So we've acquired the 51 from ESS and the 49% from ILC. So we own 100% of the asset. And look, I'll make a note on that as a business, we want to own 100% of our assets. I don't want to put my, my trust and our sort of future in JVs and other people's work. We've got a team here that, is extremely technically proficient, commercially proficient. So we feel we can push our assets along, appropriately. So looking at Mavis Lake, that's a project that's been around since probably the 50s. Originally, they were exploring there for tantalum, and more recently, the last 10 years, lithium. And there's some excellent grades there and, excellent hits. No resource as yet. Obviously, that's what we are planning to do to add that value. But I mean, some great intercepts. I mean, 26 metres at 1.7, 7.7 at just under 3, 55 metres at 1.04. We all know what's happening in lithium right now. Very hot area. And as a business, we don't want to just acquire assets because, the market's hot and, we're chasing sentiment. That's not what we do. We look at asset quality first. But, if the sentiment is hot, we'll take that at the same time. So we're very excited.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at something like a lithium, it's pegmatites, and you mentioned that it was a tantalum project. There's some major lithium projects that were tantalum projects, Wodgina, Greenbushes, and that they go hand in hand. They all live in the same environment, right?
Sure.
And when I'm looking at the intercepts that you got there, 55 meters and things like that, I mean, that's you're not exploring, right? So you're in the midst of it, which is what I like about the acquisition. Is that it's set, the market sentiment's there, and you're not sort of looking for it.
It's not rock chips. It's not greenfields. Yeah. There's been significant exploration on the project over the years, and I think it's fortuitous for us to make this acquisition right now. And a note on that is this: that there's 2 terms in the term sheet, okay, and 2 clauses, milestones, milestone 1 and milestone 2. That's 5 million tonnes, milestone 1, and 10 million tonnes, milestone 2. That's what the vendors wanted in there. That tells us that there's potential here. It's not just about going, lithium's hot, let's acquire a lithium asset. No. We like the potential in this project. To unlock that, we have to do that work. And, you would have seen an announcement the last couple of days. We're doing an airborne survey, and that will help us define some new targets. and we'll look at getting into drilling, early part of next year, I reckon.
It's one of those things that, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up, because in a lot of these kind of projects, you can see in the terms what the vendors think of what they have, and when it's very slack and very easy, low cost of entry, you can guess that that's not onerous on the incoming party, right? So when you see that, you get, okay, these guys really, there is something there of substance. When you guys look at where you wanted the project, was there any sort of like, we want to be here or we want to be there?
We do a lot of project evaluation in our office. There's a lot of experience there. I mean, my background, I'm a mining engineer. We've got Jeremy Wybrow on the board as well. He's a very experienced geologist. I've got private equity background. We've got a lot of commercial deal making background. So we're used to looking at projects, we're used to looking at deals. Now, if you asked me, where do you want a mining project? I'd say two things. I'd say Australia, which we've got, and I'd say Canada. And if you're going to have it in Canada, have it in Ontario. That's probably the most mining friendly jurisdiction. The further north you go, the colder it gets, of course, there's issues there. But Ontario's great, and we're just in that lithium triangle. And that's right on the border with the States. And if you look at some of the commentary coming out of the States right now, they're looking at securing supplies of lithium and other critical minerals, and they're looking to Canada to do that. So we're in a great position there, and I think that the US is going to have like a second manufacturing boom. It has to, as it decouples from China, and I think that Canada is the perfect source for a lot of those raw materials.
I think I agree. The uranium, the lithium, or this critical, we call them the critical metals kind of zone. I think that's where the drive, the catalyst will be. It's in North America. As we can see, we hear more and more about the issues of China. I mean, that's just part of growth, right? And lots of economies have gone through that. We're not saying that they're sort of going down the gurgler, just going through that painful part of growth and stabilizing things, and they'll slow down, and that's just the cycle of how you grow as an economy, right? One of the things is when you look at where you guys with lithium, what's your thoughts on the market? I mean, everyone's got their narratives. So what's your narrative on this market?
If we go back to the first lithium boom, let's call it, back in 2016-17, a lot of that came off a tweet from Elon Musk, okay? And I think that people got very excited, but they didn't fully understand the industry, the business. They didn't understand mining, how long it takes potentially for projects to get off the ground. And there's always been this deadline of 2030. Everyone's always spoken about 2030. Things need to change by this date. And if we go back to 2016, that was a long time ago. Now we're only 8 years away from that. So I think it's very different. But the key point of this is that a lot of this change becomes policy driven by governments. We've seen that in China. I used to spend time over in China. We've seen how that works there. Policy driving that change. You have to do it. And we're seeing Western governments starting to do that as well now. So that's going to be the thing that keeps lithium and other critical minerals on the radar and in demand long term.
And when I look at your management, if you mentioned that one of the, you have a Robert Munn, who's your non-exec chairman.
Correct.
And I've spoken to several times with Suvo. My impression is the guy wants to build something, want to do something. It doesn't come across to me as someone who's sort of mining the market, as they say, right?
That's right. Well, when you look at Rob, look at his background. He was in mining services. He built a very successful mining services business. He's on the board of Parks. He's chairman of Suvo, as you say. He's chairman of Critical Resources. None of us have to do what we do, right? We do it because we enjoy doing it. And I think when you get a team that's aligned in the reason it's doing things, and you find the why, that's very important, because your technical skill sets, they're already banked. We know what we're doing. It's just how you apply those and the reason for which you apply those. And when Rob took over the company, as it was False Commodities before, and we changed our name to Critical Resources in June this year, and that's when I came on board as CEO. You know, I think when you look at that transition and you look at where the company was previously, 12 months ago, and we've had to earn back investors' trust as we've stepped in and taken the reins. Things that were an issue potentially in the company previously, maybe it's not our fault, but it's our responsibility as a board and a management team to fix it. And I think we're starting to earn that trust back. We're showing investors we do what we say we're going to do. You know, we're excited about coming to work every day. This isn't just a job for any of us. You know, it's a lot bigger than that. So to have that platform and to use that platform and to grow and to build projects and to look to the long term, that's pretty exciting every day.
I met this comment even on my tweets, whatever, that, you know, someone like Robert who's come from a private business, mining services, you know, you can see that he's into building things, and I can see that's reflected in the two businesses that I have, I know about, Silver and this one, obviously. Also, what I liked about when you announced that you had the acquisition, and normally you just have this sort of sit there and run its time before the next lot of activities. But I've noticed you've put out an announcement saying that you're going to be doing some geophysics, which is good. But to me, it's a good sign, right? And I think maybe it reflects to what you've just said about doing things. And will you guys, what's next for this after this, and how practical is to get this kind of information back as soon as possible?
I guess the question about getting it back as soon as possible is the sooner you start it, the sooner you get it back. That's a good way of looking at it. And you know, you make an acquisition and everyone gets excited and then it goes dead. Yeah. And you see that so many times. And we've said that, you know, news flow is really important. You know, I think a lot of companies take for granted that, you know, they might know what's going on behind the door. They might see that, but the average investor doesn't. And if he doesn't see that, guess what? He'll make up his own mind. And it's probably not going to be that good. So for us, it's important that we keep news flow strong and we're doing the right things for the right reason. So, you know, when we acquired Mavis Lake, before we'd even done the deal, we already had a strategy of the next 6 months. What are we going to do work-wise? How's this going to add value? What does that look like announcement-wise? How does that fit in with the current market? And principally, how does that make us different and better from what else is going on in the market? Because when it is hot, you know, when it is hot like it is, you can just announce it and, you know, the market will take care of it. Well, that's fine, but guess what? There comes a point where it comes back down too. So for us, we want to make sure that we're writing our own future and doing the right work, keeping the market informed. That's how you add real value. And of course, a lot of that is driven by Rob, as you say, and the rest of the team, and that's the attitude we see in our business.
When I'm looking at this presentation, looking at the drill intercepts and the grades and everything else, when your technical guys, obviously you guys did DD in it, and I understand you know you don't come from a rock licking background. What were the feedback that you were getting from them to make you guys, you know, big numbers sometimes mask something else, right? So what were the feedback?
The feedback's been very positive from DD. I think that when you look at this asset, you can see surface expressions, surface outcrops. There's been a lot of drilling since the 50s, as I said. Some of it was for tantalum before, but you know they've still recorded lithium grades back then as well. So that's an opportunity for us to maybe look at, you know, twinning those holes down the track. I think where you can see it on surface and you've drilled it down to about 150 metres, there's a fair confidence that there's something good there. That is the interesting point. We're only down to about 150 metres drilling. We're going to start testing what happens down dip of that, and who knows, right? It's geology. You know that better than me. But you know, I think that what we see there is something, you know, of reasonable scale, and I refer back to the milestones of 5 million tonnes and 10 million tonnes that the vendors wanted in the term sheet. So it's on us now to prove that and do the work to prove it up.
Now, going to my favourite topic, zinc, because when...
Why do you like zinc so much?
Oh, I've been sort of professing that, you know, we had this shortage of zinc, and for many years, I mean, I did an article a while ago, 2018, I think, and it didn't rear its head, but it seems to have now, with the price running so fast. And when we first touched base about doing a coffee Samso, when I saw what you guys had in New South Wales, I thought this is very, very interesting. Prior to you guys making the announcement, but I think this is also a very, very good project, right? From your stables, which makes sense with the lithium package, personally. So can you give us a rundown on that part of your portfolio?
Yeah, sure. So that's a Halls Peak project over in New South Wales near Armidale. Now, when I first came on as CEO and I was approached about this role, that's what really drew me to it, because I have some history on that project. I know of it. I know people that have sort of been involved around it over the years, and I really see the potential there. And similar situation that we're talking about with Canada, very shallow drilling. I mean, the most recent drill program in 2016, I mean, there's intercepts there of 37 metres at just under 9% zinc and 3% lead. When we look at the geophysics, and we reinterpret the geophysics earlier this year, we look at that, we've defined some really strong targets, both at Gibsons and Sunnyside. So there's like 5 or 6 prospects on the whole tenement package, but Sunnyside and Gibsons are the 2 that we're going to target in this upcoming drill program. Now, there's been near surface mining at the Gibsons prospect for over 100 years. And very, very high grade. I am no geologist. No, I've said that, you've said that, but I know it don't fall out the sky. I do know that much. It comes from somewhere, and am I right?
Yeah. Look, when you look at those numbers, I mean, you sort of mentioned 37 minutes at short of 9%, right? And then the next one I see is 11.3 at 15%.
Yeah,
right?
Pretty good.
So. And you've got a suite of stuff happening. You got zinc, you got lead, you got silver and copper, right?
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of where you've got a big pot and everything's cooking. You're just not sure which one's going to come up, right?
Yeah,
but when their numbers are high, like 1.4% copper, and you're getting up to 597 grams of silver, it's a mess. It's a serious cooking pot we're talking about.
It certainly is, and if you do some research on Halls Peak and look at some of the stuff that's freely available online, you'll see reports there dating back to the 70s. There's been a lot of work done on the project, and there's a lot of talk about it being a large-scale SEDEX deposit, and analogous to things like MacArthur River, Cannington, Mount Isa. Structurally, we're talking about structurally wise, right? Obviously, we need to prove that, and we need to do that drilling, but I think a lot of companies previously who had this asset looked at it and just went, we'll just drill near surface, we'll just do 150 metres, because we're guaranteed to get good grade. Nobody wanted to test the depth potential, but as we know, that's where the potential scale is. And now we've defined these targets with the geophys rework, that's what we're going to do. And we're testing these at, 400, 500, 600 metres depth, and we feel that there's mineralisation all the way down, and we need to prove it up as economic. But when you've got big targets, it's not like drilling, I don't know, a narrow vein ore body that's 3 or 4 metres wide. We're aiming for things that are showing up as 250 metres across. So that's what we're doing in our upcoming drill program in November. It's very exciting. I mean, that's why a lot of investors stuck around in False, as it was then, and Critical. They wanted to see that happen. So we've gone through the permitting, released an announcement today. We've got ministerial approval to drill at Gibsons, which is great. So drillers are locked in, end of November, site visit next week. Exciting times.
When I'm looking at your market cap and what you have in your portfolio, again, it's one of those companies that have a lot of bright future, but if you look at from an investor point of view, and when I'm looking at what you guys got at Halls Peak, right? That's serious cooking. When I say serious cooking, I'm talking about your system, whatever is there to generate that kind of numbers.
Sure.
Sure, it's maybe limited in the sense, but it means you got potential to be having volume once you can prove that, right? But at least you got that serious numbers to go, hey, this could be big, right? If there were magnitudes lower, you'll be thinking, maybe it was just a little bit in pieces, right? So with your market cap where you are, I think, one discovery like this, and you have many happy investors, I think.
Yeah, and I mean everyone's looking for X's, of course. But you can let the market do that, and you can let sentiment do that, or you can follow companies that have got good assets and good management teams. And I feel we're one of those companies. And I think this drilling that's coming up, both in New South Wales and over in Canada, and the work we're going to do there is really going to put a rocket under Critical.
Tell me if I've got this descriptive words correct. I think that the stuff in New South Wales, there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of talk, and we got big deposits there too, right? But we don't seem to hear a lot about it. Would that be correct?
I think there's some very large scale projects over there, and typically with your large scale projects, let's look at Cadia, for example. You don't really ever hear anything about it because it's established and it's going. So we see that in those large scale, mining operations. I think that where we are, which is the New England Fold Belt, we are next to the Lachlan Fold Belt. Obviously the Lachlan Fold Belt is very well known, or has become much more well known in New South Wales. We're next door to that. I think we are, the fact that we're next door, we're the next cab off the rank, so to speak. We've got Hillgrove over the road from us, so that's golden antimony. Mm-hmm. That mine was developed a few years ago. Yep. So there is activity there, and there is drilling there, and there is exploration there. But certainly where we are, we feel that it's vastly underexplored and probably underappreciated. But it comes back to us to then prove that and do the work to show the market.
I think that's the good part of the whole story, is that, as you say, it's underappreciated because people don't hear it. The market doesn't. The guys who are in the market know, yes, that's why a lot of people are there. And when they're trying to tell the market, hey, but I think that the market needs to be sort of realigned in their thinking, that when you look up north, you got the Mount Isa, the Carringtons. I mean, those are big producers, right? And Cadia is a big producer that, as you said, not many people understand that they are making money. They're printing money over there.
It's a rock factory, that place, right?
Yeah. So, again, in that sense, the geology is a good mix and everything else. But when we talk about the zincs and the leads, and we sort of had that conversation before, that the market is sort of at the point where it's reared its head. There was a lot of talk about supply issue, right? And for many years, as I've said before, it sort of was there, but it didn't sort of do what it was supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Can you give us your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think zinc it's not a bellwether metal, so to speak. I mean, that's typically copper, right? And, that's why I quite like zinc, because if zinc is strong, it suggests to me it's not just a short-term indicator, it's potentially demonstrating fundamentals as well. Now, zinc is used in, our green energy future, let's frame it like that, as is lead, right? So, and we didn't really hear about zinc and lead. I mean, go back and look at Galena a few years ago with the Abra deposit. We look at, obviously, Rumble Resources. They've done very well with Irahidi. And recently we've seen Strickland come out with some of these results on their project. So the market is picking it up. And I think that the market is looking for good quality projects in the base metal space right now. And as Critical Resources, our investment brief is fairly broad. We're not locked into one thing. We like base metals. We like lithium. And as I've said, you've heard me say it before, if you're a gold company, guess what you're investing in? You're buying gold projects, you're investing in gold, that's it. So for us, it allows us, gives us that scope to look across this range of critical minerals and make strategic acquisitions. And that's what it's all about.
I think you're right. There's a chart I saw recently, and they talk about all these renewable energies, and they look at the metals. So what a lot of people forget is that although lithium is the key component in batteries, to build those things that sits around the lithium, you still need other metals, right?
Correct.
And now we've got this research or surgence of let's go clean energy, green, no emission, zero emission, etc. You still need to build things, right? And that's where zincs and the leads and the basement. I always love basement because that's your building blocks,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And you've got the critical stuff, or the tantalums and the tungstens and all that. Even zinc's all-time high. Even molybdenum's all-time high. So those are should see is the building blocks of the new world, right?
And I think that this post-COVID world, PC people are calling it now, I keep hearing this term, this post-COVID world is really going to be a marker point for a next stage of growth globally, and a new sort of style of growth, and I think it is going to be policy driven towards green energy. We are going to have to adopt these things. Look at what's happened in China over the last few years. I mean, I can remember being up there and going to a car park in a shopping centre and seeing about 50 Teslas, and I thought it was a Tesla convention, but I was told no, it's just a car park. Purely because if you want to buy a vehicle in a tier 1 city over there now, it's hard to get a traditional combustion engine powered vehicle, right? If you buy an electric vehicle, you get it straight away, you don't pay sales tax. All these incentives, we're going to start seeing that in the West.
Yeah.
And as you say, it's not just the thing that goes in the battery, it's everything else that you need to build it.
Yeah.
So I think that post-COVID, governments are going to want to spend. There's going to be infrastructure building. I think stimulus will continue to some degree. I think people will want to get out and sort of start spending money and start doing things. I think it's a restart for the world, and it's going to be very interesting in the next 5 to 10 years.
Oh no, I fully agree. I think that's the best narrative that I've heard from is that we are moving to that new world, and the jostling for these metals is why this thing is. I had a discussion with previously. Someone says, look, that there is this new run, and as a geologist, we don't look as an exploration geologist. Let me qualify that. We've never really looked past 6 to 9 months in every bull run, right? Because we all know these things work in cycles. This one has been quite long, and I think it's will be longer because as like I was saying, is this zero emission thing is pushing this, and we're only in the early stages.
That's right.
Very early stages, right? It's
and I
still
still think there's a lack of understanding from the general public about what this zero emissions means and what this, reducing carbon footprint means. We've heard these terms for a long time. We've probably heard these terms for well over 20 years, but it's really only the last 3 or 4 that we've actually seen it accelerating and governments starting to get involved at a serious level. And ultimately, there has to be a way that people make money out of this, because guess what, if you don't make money, nobody's going to do the business that supports it. So we're going to see new technologies, we're going to see new businesses, and metals is always going to fit into that in one way or another. So I think this metal super cycle we're in now, I mean, it's the 3rd one in my lifetime. We had one in the 70s, one in the 2000s, and we've got this one now. This is the strongest, and I think it's going to go on for quite a few years.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're seeing that with all the IPOs at the moment. And I don't necessarily look at them and think they're all amazing, but a good indicator is the amount of money that a lot of people are raising. And okay, maybe they don't do anything with the projects that they've got in their portfolio now, but if you back the team, that they can then do something with their cash position to make good acquisitions down the track, great. But look, I think we're in a very exciting space for mining right now. It's good to have projects in tier 1 jurisdictions in Canada and Australia. We have our Oman project, of course, as well. But we're liking it, and I think the future looks very bright for Critical Resources.
So going forward, what's in it for the investors? What's upcoming?
I think, as you pointed out, that relatively, when we look at our peers, I don't like to use the term undervalued, okay, because the market decides that. I think there's good value proposition in the business which perhaps isn't been realised yet by investors, okay. The key is news flow. This Halls Peak asset that we've got, we think is excellent, and we think there's large scale there, and we think there's massive potential. That's something that a lot of our shareholders have been waiting for a long time. That process of exploring that and proving it up is has started. We've got some permits in place now, so keep watching on that one, because I think that can return significant value. The lithium acquisition, fantastic, great asset, great exploration potential in a good spot. You're going to see news flow from both of these projects. The one thing we don't do is sit around and just wait. We're aggressive, we're active, we know which buttons to push, and we know what work we have to do to make people see the value in what we've got. So that's what it looks like. The next 6 months particularly is very, very exciting for us. Everyone have a look, and I think you'll be pleased with what you see.
Well, I'm looking forward to some of the results coming out in New South Wales. That
Sure.
will be very interesting.
That'll be good.
And especially the two suite of projects. Lithium's got its own space. We know where that space is, but zinc is the one that sticking his head out. And I think if you got that going forward in the new sort of as you use the word PC, well, I think it would be very, very interesting. Look, Alex, fantastic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Any last words to shareholders to make the sellers into buyers?
I'd like to thank our shareholders that have supported us and that have supported the new team and stood by us. We are doing what we said we were going to do. We always need to bear in mind that we need to keep proving that to everybody. We need to keep moving forward, keep providing news to the market. As we said, there's two great assets here with lots of news flow potential. And to some degree, they're both relatively de-risked. We know in New South Wales, we know that there's mineralisation there. We've got targets. We've got some fantastic previous drilling. We know in Canada that there's some exceptional results there. And we know what the lithium space is doing as well. So, now it's on us to do this work, put these exploration programs in place, keep watching. There's going to be some good news flow. It's going to be very exciting next 6 months.
All right, fantastic. Alex, thank you. And look, we'll keep following the journey, and we'll here at Samso, we'll be having more discussions as we go forward.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.